I don't know about you, but over the last few months, for me, it started to feel like AI is impossible to ignore.
A warning from Elon
calling for a pause.
Turning to AI.
ChatGPT. The power of artificial.
We've got to be cautious here.
The machines are doing.
One minute, it was just theoretical ideas being mentioned on some podcasts, and the next, everyone was posting drawings of themselves being made by a computer and screen grabs of high school level essays generated by ChatGPT. And it's all gonna get way, way better very fast. So as filmmakers, should we be freaking out? Is AI about to take over film production and fire us all? Should we be getting out of this industry as fast as possible and learning to code? That's what I've been wondering anyways, and in this video, I'm gonna talk about how I think AI is gonna change the game, where the biggest changes are coming to the industry, and then at the end, I'll get into whether or not I think there's any future for filmmakers in an AI world. Alright, so now we're in for the big surprise, which was that whole intro was actually recorded by AI. Recorded by AI. No, I'm just kidding, that was me. Maybe it means I'm out of touch, but AI really did seem to come out of nowhere in the last few months. I definitely knew what it was in theory, and I've been playing video games against AI opponents since I was a little kid, but when computers started beating people at chess and Go and pretty much everything else, it still seemed really unlikely to impact my day-to-day life. In the last couple of years, I've also listened to dozens of people on podcasts and YouTube talk about how AI was coming and how it would impact everything, but I still didn't really see how that applied to me as a filmmaker. The next thing I knew, I want to say it was in like early December, all of social media started sharing avatars and artwork made by Lensa AI and coherent articles written by ChatGPT. I did a bit more research on my own, and I suddenly understood that even as a freelance creative, this stuff was absolutely going to impact me in a bunch of ways. And just to save you some anxiety, my takeaway isn't that we're all doomed, but we really need to pay attention to how these tools are evolving so we don't get lost in the churn. So what can AI do well, and what will it likely do well in the very near future? Well, if you can give AI some solid prompts and references, it can already make some incredible stuff. Those Lensa AI portraits look great if you give it good examples to copy, and if you learn how to give ChatGPT the right instructions, it can churn out a 1,500-word article on any topic in no time. That's pretty impressive, and I can't imagine how teachers are gonna stop this stuff from doing everyone's homework all the time.
Things are about to change around.
I was actually hoping that ChatGPT could take my video scripts and turn them into blog posts to save me the trouble of having to write copy for hours and hours a week, but it's not really there yet. The writing doesn't have much character, and it does feel like a machine wrote it most of the time. It doesn't really have a personality or a voice, it's all just information. I know you can also run that text through more AI like Quillbot or Grammarly or whatever, and it does get a little better. It can write a stellar breakdown of how a car engine works, but for the moment, it's not really ready to speak in my voice quite yet. I do think it could easily get there in a very short period of time though, like in just a few years or so, and honestly, that sounds pretty good to me. Since launching this YouTube channel and getting into the world of online business, I have to put out an unbelievable amount of text copy for everything from bio pages to descriptions to scripts and pitches. If I could outsource the most mundane of those to a computer, I'd personally be up for that. The stuff that really matters though, like where my personality and experience are what counts, so like the scripts for these videos or thoughtful responses to comments or coming up with new projects, that stuff is probably gonna have to be done by me forever, or at least during my lifetime anyways, I think. But I'll get into why I think so in a minute. I could also see AI being used in a bunch of other ways as well. Something like Tome, which is an AI presentation generator, could save me hours of screen time by generating pitch decks for me. The information and ideas would all still have to be mine, but I'd no longer need to be physically making the deck one slide at a time. Depending on the type of project, I could also see it generating the reference imagery based on my inputs as well, saving me even more time. Tools like Color Lab AI can also do some crazy things when it comes to color grading projects, and if you haven't seen it, you can basically tell it whatever movie or TV show you want your footage to look like, and it can do a respectable job of it, assuming it was well shot in the first place. There's definitely a bunch more of AI programs that I don't need to get into, but it definitely seems to me like a lot of work is going to drop out of the filmmaking world in the next few years based on where these tools are heading. This is going to be specifically true in the low budget world and for people who are just getting started, where they need their stuff to be good, but not necessarily world class. An indie doc where one person is writing, shooting, and editing the thing themselves, those people probably aren't going to hire a professional colorist to go over their footage when they can get 70% of the way there with just a few clicks. Why would you spend money you don't have on a graphic designer for a release poster, or hire a sound mixer to balance your levels when computers can do it for $10 a month? The reality is that you probably wouldn't, and I mean, mean, I probably wouldn't either. This means that, at least in my opinion, there's going to be a substantial drop in work on the low end, the people who are servicing very small operations or maybe working on platforms like Fiverr or Upwork. Anywhere people value cost efficiency over uniqueness and mastery, or where the content just needs to be good enough, I think AI has the potential to take over. Where it won't take over, at least not for a long time anyways, is when creativity and uniqueness are valued over cheapness. An HBO director will probably want to work with a human colorist over a machine because they'll value the relationship and creative input of a person. I also don't see it taking over the actual idea generation and key creative roles either. And that's not because I don't think AI will be able to come up with a list of interesting ideas, but there's a few main reasons why I think that human filmmakers are safe for a while still. The first reason is physical. AI can't actually go out into the world and act on any of these ideas, at least not until robot technology evolves a long way.
What am I?
AI can't also easily develop human relationships like a documentary filmmaker would need with their characters. If you want to tell a heartfelt story about a difficult time in someone's life, you probably need to be able to sit down and have a coffee with them, not communicate through a screen. And obviously things like holding the camera and changing memory cards and all that stuff too, but honestly with some of the Boston Dynamics robots I see on YouTube, that might not be true forever. The bigger reason why I don't think filmmaking is going to be taken over AI, which also applies to the arts in general, is the fact that humans just won't value it. When I was in school, I remember I took a communications class and the professor was explaining the power of branding through a study about knockoff purses. The experiment was basically to give a bunch of people counterfeit purses and tell them that they were real. And then they asked them a bunch of questions about how they felt about it. It was a luxury brand and most people were super happy to have it. They thought they had an expensive bag and they were pumped. Then the researchers started telling some of the people that it was actually fake and asked them if they still felt the same way. Almost all of the people said they no longer valued the bag in the same way and that overall they just liked it way less. The emotional connection was totally lost. Whether or not it makes any sense for someone to like something more when they think it's expensive, whether or not they can tell a difference in quality, isn't the point. The point is that it's the emotional connection, the story of the thing that gives art value. Saving up your money for an expensive purse handmade in Italy by craftspeople is a great story, whereas getting a great deal on an industrial item from a sweatshop in Bangladesh is not. My prediction is that the same thing is going to be true in filmmaking and the arts more broadly. Just because in 30 years AI might be able to theoretically come up with a story, generate the visuals, edit the whole thing into a really entertaining package, the emotional connection won't be there. Once you find out the movie is made by an AI, you're not going to care as much and it won't be special. Maybe for things like infomercials or instructional videos, it's not going to matter as much, but I think for people to really invest in a story, they're going to want to know it was made by a human. Now, I could be wrong about this, but I think as soon as people find out an AI made the film they were watching, they'd see it as kind of cheap. Where it's going to get really interesting is if you didn't know it was made by an AI and thought it was a human director, which I'm sure will happen at some point, but that's honestly beyond the scope for today's video. So for now, my conclusion is that AI is absolutely going to change things up, and in the next 5 years, we're going to feel those impacts in the industry. But at least for the foreseeable future, I think people will still want to be told stories by other people. And so if you're the filmmaker, you're probably not going to be out of a job for a while. That's just me though, and I'm really curious what you guys think. Do you see AI taking over everything? Are you using AI in your filmmaking workflows right now? Let me know in the comments. That's all for today, though I'm sure we'll be talking about this stuff again before too long because we're living through wild, wild times right now. Hope you liked that video and maybe it got you thinking about AI in a different way. If you did like it, think about subscribing or liking or all that good stuff, or maybe check out this other video I made about how you can leverage the power of networking to supercharge your filmmaking business this year. See ya.